surveillance. Modi government swings into action. Modi's message, mask up. Is India prepared for fourth wave? Top focus on 5 Live.
And if everything goes right, of course, there will be no fourth wave. There's nothing to worry about, nothing to panic about at this point of time. India's #1 COVID reporting team right here on India Today keeps you calm, keeps you ahead, keeps you informed because you've got questions. Remember, there's a big meeting that's just happened where the Prime Minister is meeting with all his experts and ministers. We'll tell you what they've decided. First, the headlines. Pandemic politics continues to rage. Rahul Gandhi hits out at centre, claims COVID is an excuse to stop his yatra as BJP fears its success. BJP calls Rahul irresponsible. Big face-off in Parliament over Tawang clash. Opposition corners the government, centre hits back. Recalls Nehru's alleged failure to protect Indian territory in 1962. Lingayat quota showdown simmers in Karnataka months before elections. Thousands march seeking more reservation. Bombay government to take a decision today. Big setback for actor Jacqueline Fernandez. Jackie withdraws plea to travel abroad after Enforcement Directorate objects in court. ED warns the court that Jackie might not return to the country if given permission to leave. RRR's iconic hit Natu Natu in the race for Best Song at the Oscars. 4 Indian movies, including Cello, Show, also make it to the Oscar shortlist. Prime Minister Modi is, as we speak, chairing a high-level virtual COVID review meeting. The Prime Minister is taking stock of India's COVID preparedness. Remember, it's 3 years of the pandemic this month. Prime Minister Modi is assessing India's COVID situation, which is at an all-time low at this point of time. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia, Home Minister Amit Shah, Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia, leaders of the COVID task force like Dr. V.K. Paul and others are in this crucial COVID huddle with the Prime Minister. Those images on the right-hand side of your screen are from that meeting that is currently still taking place. Right after that meeting, we will of course bring you a fresh news break on any decisions that have been taken. But in the meantime, I want to bring India Today's Milan Sharma in on this. Milan belongs to India's #1 COVID reporting team. She's reported across the 3 years of the pandemic. She joins me live now. Milan, big meeting by the Prime Minister with his top team, the COVID task force, ministers and others. The meeting is still on. It's been on for a while. Can you bring us up to speed, Milan, on what specifically they could be deciding about?
Well, Shiv, the major point of contention and discussion here would be the mask mandate. Even if the mask mandate is brought back, because a lot of people are being encouraged to wear masks, will there be fines for non-compliance is what the states have to decide. That would be discussed in the meeting. Also, the fact that there has been very little or no enthusiasm when it comes to taking the precaution dose, which is the third or the booster in India. And only 28% of people have taken it according to government's own data, which means that there has to be an uptake for the precaution dose. Apart from the fact that, a mixed dose regimen has also been recommended by the government, but people have not moved forward to taking that third dose. So protecting the vulnerable population. Of course, apprehending that there could be more cases in clusters that are more
Yes.
vulnerable. We used to look at Maharashtra earlier as the state that would have a lot of cases, but now that's no longer the case. All states in India are reporting very negligible, minimal amount of cases. And whether
Yes.
China's case load poses a threat to a country like India with a huge population density. International flights, certainly, because Jyotiraditya Scindia, Civil Aviation Minister, is part of that meeting. What kind of mandate will be given to international passengers? And of course, we don't see any international travel ban. As per sources, we've learnt that India is not in the favor of imposing any international travel ban yet. But
Yes.
yes, restrictions definitely at international airports. Karnataka is one of the states that's doing random sampling and testing now. And apart from that, of course, people want to celebrate. Christmas is around the corner. New Year's is around the corner. People are traveling. So precautionary measures
Yes.
and India's preparedness plan is being created at the moment with the PM heading it. Shiv.
Okay, and I just want to remind, Milan, thanks very much for that. I want to remind all of our viewers that starting now till 10 p.m. we will be non-stop on COVID here in India today, and each hour we will bring you a fresh aspect of it. At 6 p.m. we will be bringing you an India-wide reality check on India's preparedness. At 7 p.m. the 10 big questions every Indian is asking, we'll be answering them with experts, with medical practitioners and those leading India's fight back. So if you're watching India Today, you're watching the only channel that will keep you calm, dispel rumors and myths, and keep you fully informed with the information that you need to navigate the next step. Now let's take you through all the big COVID updates coming in today. Here are the things that I want to share with you today. Prime Minister Modi, as I just told you, is chairing that crucial meeting to personally check our preparedness to fight any further surge here in India in the coronavirus. High-ranking officials are taking part. It's expected that advisories will be sent to states after this huddle. Of course, I'll bring you that news break just when that meeting ends. Delhi, the capital, is also preparing and gearing up to fight COVID amidst the festive season. Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has chaired an emergency meet just now. He will be chairing that meet, I beg your pardon. The health department has been directed to ensure genome sequencing of samples and take other steps needed to meet any eventuality. Meanwhile, Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia has briefed Parliament on steps being taken to ensure India is fully prepared to fight COVID. In his Lok Sabha address earlier today, the Health Minister also stressed on the need for people to do the basics that they've been used to wear masks, use sanitizers, particularly in the wake of the festive and New Year season. In light of the rise in COVID cases in China, the Indian Medical Association has listed a number of steps to be taken to ensure everyone is cautious, appealing for COVID-appropriate behavior to be followed. The IMA has said people must avoid public gatherings and international travel for the time being, even though there are no official restrictions just yet. Meanwhile, the central government has confirmed that random RT-PCR sampling among passengers arriving at international airports in the country has already been kicked off. So those are the basics of what's taking place at this time. About how prepared India is at this point of time. Remember, keep in mind that the Prime Minister is chairing a meeting that pertains directly to the report that you're about to watch. Things will change once that meeting ends in terms of advisories, in terms of what states may be asked to do, in terms of what you and I may be asked to do. But for now, India's preparedness is at an all-time high. Watch this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi's big COVID review. Amid global surge in COVID cases, particularly the runaway infections in China, India, whose COVID fight was lauded across the world, is rising to the challenge again. Here are the steps the government is mulling to fight any threat of COVID's return. To be detailed in advisory for states from centre. This is renewed focus on precautionary vaccine dose. Steps like mask mandates are likely to make a comeback. Curbs likely on New Year bash. Big focus to be on social distancing. Apart from screening of all travellers from China and random testing for international flyers. Also increased quarantine and testing measures.
अंतर्राष्ट्रीय हवाई अड्डे पर विदेश से आने वाले हवाई यात्रियों के 2% कोविड आरटीपीसीआर रैंडम सैंपलिंग भी आज शुरू कर दी गई है। माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री मोदी जी के समर्थ नेतृत्व में भारत पहले से ही अमल में टेस्ट, ट्रैक, ट्रीट, वैक्सीनेशन, कोविड एप्रोप्रिएट बिहेवियर का पालन नीति के साथ कोविड मैनेजमेंट कर रहा है, उसे आगे भी चालू रखेंगे।
Despite alert, the center has advised against mass panic.
We are here right now at the Charbagh railway station in Lucknow, where you can see the travelers and the passengers who are coming, but there is no as such follow of the protocol so far. People have actually forgotten to use the mask. There are few passengers who are indeed using, but most of them are visible without using the mask, which is the situation going on.
India has reported 4 COVID-19 cases of BF7, the sub-variant of Omicron strain of COVID-19, but it seems in Uttar Pradesh, people haven't learned any lesson. कोरोना वापस आ गया है क्या? हाँ? कोरोना क्या फिर से वापस आ गया है?
हमें तो मालूम नहीं पड़ा भैया।
नहीं, चाइना में जिस तरह से हाकार मचा है, सरकार ने भी अब कहा है कि सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग का पालन किया जाए।
किया जाए तो भैया जो सरकार कहे वो तो करना ही पड़ेगा।
क्या लगता है, मास्क का दौर वापस आ गया है?
आने वाला है।
कैसे?
जिस हिसाब से चाइना का हॉल है ना, उस हिसाब से लगी रहा है।
अभी प्रिकॉशन लेना बहुत जरूरी है, क्योंकि सर्दी का दिन है, ज़्यादा कोविड इसी टाइम फैलता है। हर साल पिछले 2 साल से सर्दी के समय ही कोविड हो रहा है।
States too are pulling out all stops, preparing for any possible spike in cases.
ರಾಜ್ಯದಲ್ಲೂ ಕೂಡ ಕೋವಿಡ್ ಅನ್ನು ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣ ಮಾಡಲು ಪ್ರಿವೆಂಟಿವ್ ಕ್ರಮಗಳನ್ನು, ಮುಂಜಾಗ್ರತೆ ಕ್ರಮಗಳನ್ನು ಏನೆಲ್ಲ ತೆಗೆದುಕೋಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಮಾಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಆದರೆ ಸಾರ್ವಜನಿಕರಲ್ಲಿ ನಾನು ಹೇಳಕ್ಕೆ ಇಚ್ಛಪಡ್ತೇನೆ, ಇದರ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಯಾರಿಗೂ ಕೂಡ ಭಯ ಅಥವಾ ಆತಂಕ ಬೇಕಾಗಿಲ್ಲ. ತಜ್ಞರ ಸಲಹೆ ಏನು ಹೇಳ್ತಾರೆ ಅದನ್ನು ಪರಿಪಾಲನೆ ಮಾಡಿದರೆ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣವಾಗಿ ನಿಯಂತ್ರಣ ಮಾಡಬಹುದು ಅನ್ನುವಂಥದ್ದು, ಮತ್ತು ವಿಶೇಷವಾಗಿ ಬೂಸ್ಟರ್ ಡೋಸ್ ಬಗ್ಗೆ ಒಂದು कार्यक्रमों रूपिಸುವಂತ साध्यते ಇವತ್ತು
उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार सतर्कता के साथ आगे बढ़ रही है। हमने ऐसे सभी स्थल जहां भीड़ भाड़ वाले हैं वहां कोविड का प्रोटोकॉल पालन किए जाने के लिए सलाह जारी की है, एडवाइजरी जारी की है।
अभी मध्य प्रदेश में कोई ऐसी चिंता की स्थिति नहीं है, पर जो भी स्वास्थ्य मंत्रालय का दिशा निर्देश है उसका हम पालन करेंगे।
A stealth enemy that we fought twice, with a little caution and alertness, India may prevail over COVID yet again. With Samarth Srivastav and Abhishek Mishra in Lucknow, Bureau Report, India Today.
And I want to bring Sneha Mordani live in on this story as well. Sneha, that meeting by the Prime Minister still very much on. Milan, of course, is right outside the Prime Minister's residence. What are you hearing from the Health Ministry and from your sources within the COVID task force? What specific items or action points should Indian citizens be looking out for at this time?
Well, as far as the government is concerned, the worry really is that this variant has been seen, or this sublineage has been seen in the month of July, September, but cases have not increased. So the fact is that given its transmissibility, there isn't enough counting. We're not looking hard enough, Shiv, and that's the message that's going to come from the government, that if you have symptoms, then go for an RT-PCR test, because the positive sample is what is going to be sent for genome sequencing. The focus is going to be on that and not on harder lockdown measures, or forget lockdown, even harder restrictions. That is not something that the government is going to be looking at immediately. The focus is going to be on looking for more cases. Are we not counting well enough to keep an eye on hospital data? That's extremely important. Omicron wave that hit us early this year saw just so many cases, 5 lakh in a day, but hospitalizations weren't of worry, and that is one parameter that they always look at, because the worry isn't really the number of infections, the worry is the severity of the infection. So that is something that the government is keeping a very close eye on, and the discussion also is centered around this. The message is clear: take precautions if you can, especially for the vulnerable. However, there is no need to go for a 4th dose of the same same vaccine that you've taken because A, there is no data available, and also the uptake of the precaution dose is really poor. Shiv, 28% of the Indian population have taken the third dose, the precaution dose, which is not good at all. And companies like Serum have spoken about the fact that they had to discard the doses because they expired. Production has slowed down. All of these things will be factored in.
Okay, they'll all be factored in. So it's going to go into quite a degree of detail. Milan, what should one expect in terms of procedure after this particular meeting? Am I right in assuming that there's likely to be some kind of appointed advisory to states in a kind of general sense, asking them to disseminate more information forward?
Yes, Shiv. In fact, what Sneha just mentioned, the government isn't looking at moving forward with any strict restriction or lockdown or any sort of, containment measures at that moment. But yes, there will be a guideline or an advisory that will be issued through the Home Ministry. Of course, that is the DDMA guidelines that we'll be looking at. Through them, they will be implemented in the states, and the states will have to ramp up their testing, their vaccination facilities so that people can book their slots on COVID, go for their precaution doses. Otherwise, it'll be difficult for the state government themselves, because a lot of states, like for example, Karnataka as well, has only 20% coverage in precaution doses. So that's also less. And from the government side, at the central level, of course, looking at the international threat of having another mutant in India, especially from countries like China or the United States where people are traveling, is going to be a problem, which is why this 2% random sampling is being done now at the international airports. And that advisory will also come forward from the Health Ministry, then will be directed to the Aviation Ministry, and then will be implemented at airports across India. So that is one threat, because as we know, BF.4, it's been circulating here, BF.7, but of course India has not seen a rise in cases, while China kept pressing on the zero COVID policy, and they are suffering at the moment because of that. And India has also, Shiv, a very high rate of natural infection immunity at the moment.
Yes. And conversely, as Milan makes an extremely crucial point, the fact is this is in effect, what happening in China right now is in effect wave number 1. It's the first wave in China, and it really is a test of the very low or non-existent natural immunity that exists in that country. Remember that their vaccines in China have been an absolute failure, but I'll come to that failure and who's responsible for amplifying China's own follies to the rest of the world in just a moment. But I want to bring in Akshita, because right now, while we keep one eye on China, India's preparedness is of immediate concern and interest to us. India has done well. There have been some pitfalls in which India could have done better, but right now the country appears to be pretty galvanized. Akshita is going to have a full show at 6 p.m. doing a country-wide reality check. But Akshita, you've got some point for us on what the India picture is looking like right now.
And a question that everyone's asking right now, Shiv, is what happens for all of us? What are the steps that are immediately going to be put in place? We've been seeing a number of review meets happening. The result of that is a focus on a few critical areas in the fight against COVID. And it's essentially back to the basics, right, of vaccination, ensuring that that's in place. The big focus is going to be on the third vaccine dose. There are many out there who haven't received that booster dose. The focus is going to be on amplifying that all over again. Besides that, COVID advisories will be issued for state governments from the central government. This will be largely to do with masks, social distancing, the holiday season. That will be addressed too. Return of mask mandates seems likely, and there will be certain rules that apply to closed spaces in particular, ensuring people are safe. There could also be curbs on New Year Eve gatherings. What kind of curbs are we talking about? They may not completely shut down all parties, but they may limit how many people can be there at these gatherings. Social distancing is going to be another big focus point. But as I mentioned right in the beginning, back to the basics right now of social distancing, masks and vaccination. Screening for travelers who are coming in from China. You've pointed out, Shiv, that there are no direct flights, but those coming in via Hong Kong, Vietnam, etc., they will be additionally screened as well here in India. Besides that, additionally, to take a precautionary step, you will have random testing of international travelers, something that the health minister also confirmed in Parliament hours ago. You'll see quarantine testing measures, all of that being ramped up. You've got state governments already holding meets, focusing on ensuring they have adequate hospital beds, adequate quarantine centers and testing measures as well.
Akshita, thanks very much. So that's India's preparations right now. Much more in detail coming up at 6 p.m. on Akshita's show. We've got some breaking news coming in from another part of the country now. Okay, this just coming in from poll-bound Karnataka. Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai is holding a crucial COVID review meeting in Karnataka to roll out possible new COVID protocols in the poll-bound state. Remember, the reason I'm saying poll-bound means an amplification of public events and crowd gatherings at rallies, etc. Therefore, this meeting takes a greater deal of importance. Number one, mask mandate reintroduction in closed spaces. Number two, random testing of international passengers inbound at airports. Number three, hospital infrastructure to be ramped up, including oxygen cylinders. There were bitter lessons learned in Karnataka during the second wave in early 2021. Number four, government and private hospitals will ensure separate beds for COVID patients. A number of different decisions are being rolled out by a high-level emergency meet by the Karnataka government chaired by Chief Minister Basavaraj Bommai. Special vaccination camps for booster doses in case an instruction or advisory comes in from the government. Health officials will be aiming for 100% vaccination targets as well. Remember, India has led the world as far as vaccination is concerned, but these are some new advisories and protocols coming in from this emergency meet chaired by Chief Minister Bommai. Anaga joins me live from Bengaluru. Anaga, a high-level meeting, 4 months to go for elections in Karnataka, but very important meeting considering that election time means a lot of public meetings, a lot of crowds, a lot of rallies, etc. These 5 or 6 pointers coming out, pretty important. Take us through them.
Yes, absolutely, Shiv. And in fact, today morning I happened to meet BBMP Chief Tushar Girinath, and he hinted that he hinted us that today Karnataka government was all set to let out an advisory, and BBMP was going to go on a war footing to implement those COVID protocols. And in fact, if you look around me, nobody is wearing COVID masks here. In fact, I doubt even if they are aware about the fact that there is an imminent COVID wave, they're all there just walking around, going about their day hunky-dory. There are absolutely no COVID protocol being observed in the state of Karnataka. But be rest assured, today we can expect an advisory being issued by the government of Karnataka. And in fact, Sudhakar, the health minister, also orally addressed a set of guidelines, and he went on to say that masks will be made compulsory in all indoor settings, and especially rooms that have ACs in them. And patients who are suffering from ILI as well as SARI, severe acute respiratory syndrome, will also mandatorily be tested for COVID. Special camps are going to be set up, especially to spread awareness about the COVID wave as well as to vaccinate people. And in fact, only 20% of eligible citizens have received the COVID dose in Karnataka. And plans are afoot to increase the booster dosage to 80%.
So vaccination and all those protocols are going to be a top priority. Anaga, thanks very much for getting us the latest. We've got more breaking news coming in now. The Prime Minister's high-level COVID review meeting that started over an hour ago has just ended. And we are told that there could be a press release or a press statement coming out from that meeting in just a short moment from now. Milan, as always, breaking the story first here on India Today. Milan, the meeting is over. What are you hearing? There could be a statement.
Well, Shiv, the meeting has now concluded, And of course, we'll be expecting some kind of an announcement from the PMO itself, and we're waiting for that announcement at the moment. But let me tell you that this crucial meeting that was being chaired by the Prime Minister as well as the Home Minister Amit Shah with the Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia and the Health Minister Mansukh Mandviya has concluded. Of course, we are looking at what kind of advisories and mandates are going to be given across. But let me just tell you how important this meeting is today. It's not just any COVID review meeting. Things could change from here on for people in the country, because we are looking at waves of infections from China, not just China, but the United States, the Republic of Korea, Brazil and Japan as well. Japan, where 4 doses of the COVID vaccine have already been given to people. So certainly people need to be on guard, people need to be alerted, and which is why the Prime Minister perhaps will give out this message himself. It's expected that people need to now maintain precaution, so that India stays safe and is able to tackle if eventually there's another surge in infections, of COVID infections in India. But currently, of course, the message that's going to go out from the PMO is going to be to not panic and stay calm and maintain social distancing, wear a mask, follow hand hygiene. And of course, if you want to continue to enjoy the benefits of freedom of not having to have restrictions in your cities, then of course, follow COVID protocols.
Okay, follow COVID protocol. No reason for panic. And Milan and I cannot emphasize this enough. There is no reason for panic just yet. When people need to take extra precautions or emergency precautions, we'll be the first to share those with you. At this time, no panic that can lead to a lot of other adverse things, as we've seen in the first and the second and the third wave here in India. Stay with me, Milan. We've got more breaking news coming in from the national capital. Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal has also begun a high-level meeting on COVID preparations at his residence. Like we said, it's happening everywhere in the country. Not a reason to get alarmed. These are procedural meetings just to take stock. Remember, it's been many months since COVID was a front and center story as far as everyone's mind space is concerned, including state governments. And that's the reason why this is an occasion to refresh, update, revisit and galvanize to prepare for whatever could come next emanating out of China. In this meeting being chaired by Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal, also present are Deputy Chief Minister Manish Sisodia, the Director General of Health Services of Delhi and senior health department officials. Of course, the Chief Secretary and other top officials are also present in the meeting. This particular meeting by the Delhi Chief Minister is to discuss the current growing situation and whether directives need to be specifically issued to various departments and to organizations in the city of Delhi at this point of time. So you've heard from Bengaluru, it's happening in Maharashtra, Gujarat, everywhere else, and now in Delhi as well. And after this very short break, pandemic politics unfortunately continues to rage on and escalate. The Congress cries sabotage over the Rahul Yatra. The BJP calls Rahul irresponsible. This is in the wake of the government issuing an advisory to the Bharat Jodo Yatra amidst COVID fears. Area is a surge in India expected as well, given what we're seeing happening in China right now. There are already 2 cases of BF7 that have been identified here in India. Do you think there will be a surge in India as well, like it is in China, sir?
So like you rightly said, this sublineage of Omicron has already been seen in India in October, which is being reported from China. The situation in China and India is quite different. In China, because of the zero COVID policy, there is a large number of people in China who are sort of naive or are not being exposed to the virus. Also, the vaccine uptake in the elderly and high-risk group is low, and we don't know about the efficacy of the vaccine. The situation in India is different. We've had a good vaccine uptake, even our booster dose has been given, and we have data that the vaccine is effective against the new variants. Also, a lot of people have got natural infection, so there is also immunity because of natural infection. And because of the fact that our population is protected from all of this, the chances of the new variant causing a severe illness and more hospitalization or deaths in our country seems to be less likely. But having said that, we need to be more vigilant, because we know as cases increase in a particular area, the chances of mutation and new mutants coming up also becomes more. Therefore, good surveillance for any cluster of cases, any increased hospitalization in our country needs to be done, and very aggressive genome sequencing so that we pick up the variant early and are able to link it with any clinical or epidemiological change which we see in the pattern. Currently, India is in a good position, but I don't think we just need to rest. We need to be prepared for any situation which may arise.
Number 1 is the 2022 FIFA World Cup final, which saw France fight back hard before losing out on penalties to Argentina as Lionel Messi was finally crowned a world champion.
And in 2022, the world champions are Argentina.
The 1986 final, which also saw Argentina peg back from a 2-goal lead before beating West Germany 3-2, comes in at number 2 on this list. At number 3 is the 1970 World Cup final, which saw a rampaging Brazil beat Italy 4-1 and Pelé become the first man to win 3 World Cup trophies. Italy's 4th World Cup title comes in at number 4 as they defied all odds to beat France on penalties in a match that is largely remembered for Zinedine Zidane's headbutt. And at number 5 is England's 1966 triumph, which came in a final that saw both teams come from behind before an infamous linesman call decided the game. Sports Bureau, India Today.
The Prime Minister's big COVID review meeting has just ended a few minutes ago, and now we learn that Home Minister Amit Shah has arrived at the Prime Minister's residence. This is, of course, to take stock and to fine-tune any possible instructions that need to be issued to states. We're expecting some kind of a press statement on what decisions have been taken at that meeting in just a short while from now. I repeat, no reason for panic. No big restrictions of any kind are expected. Mostly in terms of advisories and generic things like wearing masks and social distancing are expected at this point of time. We'll, of course, keep you updated. Amit Shah is at the Prime Minister's residence after that key COVID meeting chaired by the Prime Minister. We'll get you an update in just a couple of minutes from now. And meanwhile, like it has been for the 3 years of the pandemic so far, politics has been very much part of the COVID fight. India's COVID fight this time as well has been hijacked by politics once again. A big BJP versus Congress fight erupted yesterday and escalated today after the Congress's Bharat Jodo Yatra became the target of a government health advisory. Congress leader Rahul Gandhi has launched a scathing attack on the Modi government, claiming that the centre is using the COVID pandemic and the new developments in China as an excuse to block the yatra. Rahul Gandhi says that the BJP is scared of the traction that the ongoing yatra is getting, and that's why they're trying to scupper it. Meanwhile, the BJP leadership, including IT cell head Amit Malviya, took to Twitter to rebut Rahul, accusing Rahul of fulfilling his political agenda. Malviya not only called Rahul an irresponsible leader, but also added that Rahul Gandhi wasn't bothered about people's lives. He was only focused on repackaging himself for the 2024 election. Well, this comes a day after the health minister wrote to Rahul Gandhi and Ashok Gehlot to observe COVID precautions at the Bharat Jodo Yatra or to suspend it entirely. Earlier, Congress MPs Jairam Ramesh and KC Venugopal too had stepped up their attack on the centre. Jairam Ramesh had said that the centre is ramping up protocols in a bid to block the yatra.
अब इन्होंने नया आइडिया निकाला है। मुझे चिट्ठी लिखी कि कोविड आ रहा है, यात्रा बंद करो। कोविड आ रहा है, यात्रा बंद करो। अब भैया मतलब अब देखिए, अब यात्रा को रोकने के लिए बहाने बन रहे हैं। मास्क पहनो, यात्रा बंद करो, कोविड फैल रहा है, सब बहाने हैं। हिंदुस्तान की शक्ति से, हिंदुस्तान की सच्चाई से ये लोग डर गए हैं। ये सच्चाई।
Well, the health minister has just asked Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party to ensure that his Bharat Jodo Yatra complies with all COVID protocols, including masking up, social distancing, a limited number of people. Now, that's not asking for too much, given that we are seeing a surge of COVID in China and rest of the world. And Congress's own Chief Minister of Himachal has tested positive after coming in contact with people who were part of the yatra, including Rahul Gandhi. And several members of parliament from Rajasthan have actually complained, saying the yatra is a super spreader and it must be asked to comply with norms. Now, if Rahul Gandhi and the Congress party choose to be irresponsible and put people in peril, then it does not reflect well on a public leader.
Taking you straight to Sona in Haryana, where the Bharat Jodo Yatra is currently located. Supriya Bharadwaj is my colleague. She's right there at this point of time. As you can see, she's walking and reporting. Supriya, COVID politics hitting the Bharat Jodo Yatra on the day that you arrived there. It's, it has given the Congress party fresh ammunition to attack the government as well. What are you hearing on the ground?
Well, absolutely, yes. For the first time, Rahul Gandhi has been facing a lot of personal brickbats from day one itself. But for the first time, today he has hit back at BJP, saying that now they again have come up with one bahana. And he has targeted not just BJP, but even the central government, has said that BJP and the central government are scared of the response that Bharat Jodo Yatra has got. We are here at noon, and the yatra started early in the morning at 6 a.m. Shiv, and you can see what is happening at ground zero. Behind you can see Rahul Gandhi along with Congress party's top leaders. Throughout the day we have seen a lot of interactions taking place, and here already people are wearing masks, but not because of COVID, because of the dust. And we have been witnessing a lot of people. You can see here also, I'll ask my camera person to show that already people are wearing masks and walking in this yatra, not from now, but even from day one itself. Well, that is because of the dust. And Congress party is also maintaining that all their people are actually vaccinated and also have got a booster dose. Srinivas went one step ahead and said that government itself had claimed that everybody in the country is fully vaccinated and they have got booster doses. And if that were happen, then why they are now raising question marks as far as the
COVID is concerned. So either the vaccination claims were false, and that's why they have to go into this COVID protocols once again, or the government is now scared of the response that Bharat Jodo Yatra has got behind. We can see Rahul Gandhi along with all the top leaders are walking. There are people standing on both sides, and Congress is saying this is happening because Bharat Jodo Yatra will be entering Delhi, the national capital, in next 48 hours. And Congress plans a mega show of strength. And you can see how people are standing over here also in Sohna, Shiv.
Absolutely.
And this is what exactly party is saying that the BJP and the central government is scared of. So these are the visuals we are showing you live from ground zero while walking.
Supriya, stay safe. Stay safe. I hope you catch your breath, because apart from COVID, there's also a lot of pollution and dust. So I hope you get to mask up as well. Thanks, Supriya, for that very, very nice, lively report from right in the middle of the Bharat Jodo Yatra, which finds itself on a political landmine at this time. Now, let's put our spotlight on the country that's given us this entire mess. China, that's witnessing this huge surge. In effect, it's their first wave in the number of COVID cases. Let's take a relook at how India sailed through this global crisis. There were devastating moments in India's fight back. There were terrible moments in India's fight back. But India has emerged in many ways as a model nation as far as the fight back is concerned in other aspects, from scientific implementation of COVID protocols to running a historic campaign encouraging people to get vaccinated. The great Indian model is a case study for the world. Here's a reminder of it.
India emerged as a model for the world in its COVID fight back. In the last 3 years, no other country has held its own and helped the world in fighting the pandemic in a way that India has. As China collapses under a monster surge, the great Indian model stands firm. The lockdown in India was implemented in a scientific way, following international protocols. It was largely accepted and people followed norms across the country. Contrast this to China's zero COVID policy. As days passed, it became harder and harder for the Chinese Communist Party to explain to its people that there was no alternative to vaccination and opening up. It had a huge impact on the Chinese economy. In India, restrictions were removed systematically and scientifically over several months in the year 2021. On the other hand, China's zero COVID policy literally vanished into thin air with neither a plan B nor an orderly return to normalcy. Despite inordinate delays in WHO approvals for Made in India vaccine, by the end of 2021, India had fully vaccinated over 70% of its population. Compare this to China, which as of last week of November has vaccinated less than 70% of its vulnerable elderly group. As the Chinese virus wreaks havoc again, India is rising to the challenge and is ready with its battle plan. Bureau Report, India Today.
Quick overview of India's war against COVID. Here are some figures and numbers that are useful as we understand what lies ahead. As far as vaccination is concerned, 70% of India's population is now fully vaccinated. By 2021 is what happened. China, only 66% of those over 80 have completed primary vaccination. As far as lockdown is concerned, India had a careful strategy of lockdown to normalcy over several months in 2022. China defied global logic and continued with its terrible and absolutely disastrous zero COVID policy that has brought them to the stage they're in right now. Post-lockdown policy, India restrictions were removed systematically and scientifically. In China, zero COVID policy was abruptly scrapped without any plan B. So the difference between how India and China have dealt with the key decisions and policies of the COVID pandemic are clear for everyone to see. India was way, way ahead of China in this. Now, with COVID cases rising uncontrollably in China in what is clearly its first wave, it seems that the world will have to unite once again in its fight against the Chinese virus, because the battle is clearly not over. But as we gear up to face what could possibly be a fourth wave. I'm hoping it's not. It's also important to remind ourselves of what impact the world faced due to the massive failures of this man and his team. Everyone knows this face. Many of you know this organization. Most of you know his name as well. Dr. Tedros and the World Health Organization, their epic failure has brought us to this pass. Watch this updated report.
It's not just important for other countries, it is important for other countries that US supports.
Everyone recognizes this face, a household name, thanks to the COVID pandemic.
The freezing of the funding will be reconsidered. WHO needs more detailed information on disease severity, hospital admissions, and requirements for ICU support. WHO is supporting China to focus its efforts on vaccinating people at the highest risk across the country, and we continue to offer our support for clinical care and protecting its health system.
Even the latest COVID crisis in China is being directly linked to the WHO's breathtaking incompetence and cowardly unwillingness to crack the whip on China. As the world waits to see if China's new nightmare could ripple across the world, it is a good time to remind ourselves that the WHO has largely failed in protecting the world. Failure number one. The WHO declared a global agency at least a week too late, totally allowing the initial spread of the coronavirus beyond China, a crucial week that made a devastating difference. The second major failure was the WHO's disastrous policy advisory that travel restrictions should be the last resort. This epic error practically delivered the virus to every corner of the world. The third major failure was the WHO's bumbling initial advisories on the droplet transmission, confusing countries and governments and leading to a disastrous lack of clarity on precautions. The most epic failure by Dr. Tedros and the WHO has been the organization's hurried approval of Chinese vaccines, which have now proven to mostly be subpar, if not completely useless, and fueling the huge surge in caseload in China. What made this worse is the WHO conversely blocked and delayed access to India's Covaxin, which has since proven to a far more efficacious vaccine than many of the others that the WHO eagerly approved under pressure from countries including China. Above all, the WHO has operated like a vassal of the Chinese state, barely criticizing the openly draconian and bungled zero-COVID policy of the Xi Jinping government, and in many cases, defending Chinese policies. It's been 3 years since the Wuhan virus went out into the world, giving global citizens their worst living memory. As India and the world navigate next steps in the battle that clearly isn't over, it wouldn't be prudent to bear in mind that those mandated with protecting the world have constantly failed. Bureau Report, India Today.
Now, China is battling a never-before-seen COVID wave, and that's because there's very low or non-existent immunity in that country. Its health infrastructure appears to be overwhelmed. Here's a ground report from China showcasing the current situation.
This makeshift fever clinic has been set up at a stadium in downtown Beijing. Since starting operation on December the 14th, it provides medical services every day from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. Most of the medical workers here are from local public hospitals. Some are from Shandong province who came to support Beijing amid this wave of COVID-19 resurgence.
主要面对的对象呢，患者呢就是16岁到65岁之间的。
We mainly receive patients aged from 16 to 65 who suffer from respiratory tract infections. Those who have severe underlying diseases or need emergency treatment are suggested to go to hospitals if it's necessary, rather than coming to this simply equipped fever clinic.
As you can see, several tents have been put up at the stadium, and they are used as a temporary registration office, consulting rooms, and the pharmacy. It's freezing cold these days in Beijing, so setting up such a fever clinic at the stadium can shelter patients from waiting in long lines in wind.
It takes me only about 5 minutes to wait in line. I got fever several days ago. Now with the medication, I won't be worried.
My wife, my mother, and I all tested positive. We had fever. I think it might be easier to get cross-infection if I go to the hospital because there could be more people there. So I came here to be prescribed fever and coughing drugs.
Doctors say a week ago when they started work here, they treated patients until midnight. But now they're seeing fewer people.
最多的时候，我们一天呢能够接诊到800到850名患者的这个人。
When we first started operation, there were about 800 to 850 patients coming here every day. But in recent days, the number of people continues to decline. Yesterday, we received about 400 patients. I think this is a positive signal.
Local government says the supply and demand for medical care and drugs is still in a tight balance in Beijing amid the current seasonal influenza and COVID-19 infections. But the capital city is taking measures to increase its capacity to respond.
Latest data shows Beijing now has over 1,200 fever clinics, including those in hospitals and communities. So far, 8 districts in Beijing have transformed public facilities such as theaters and stadiums into makeshift fever clinics to help relieve the burden at hospitals. And all the community health service centers have also set up diagnosis areas for residents who show symptoms such as fever and coughing to seek medical help near their home. Huang Yue, CGTN, Beijing.
And India Today's Nabila spoke to Dr. Louise Blair, head of vaccines and epidemiology in the United Kingdom, on the surge in COVID cases. Here's what she said. Very interesting.
Dr. Louise Blair, head of vaccines and epidemiology at Airfinity, a health data and analytics company. Dr. Louise, thank you very much. We want to understand from you the COVID-19 scare that we have yet again 3 years on. China is really exploding, their health infrastructure maxed out. US is fearing a surge in their country. India is, of course, currently preparing itself. Tell us, should we be worried?
Well, I think what we're seeing in China is a real increase in cases. They've dropped their zero COVID policy, and following which we're seeing a real surge. And these cases aren't being officially recorded, but what we are seeing is indications in media reports that hospitals are being overwhelmed, and also that there's a significant number of deaths. Now, as always with a large surge in cases, there's always concerns over a new variant emerging from the region as well. So countries such as India are preparing in case any new variants reach their shores.
You know, Dr. Louise, what's your take on herd immunity? I know UK tested it at one point, even though China wasn't really willing to practice herd immunity. It appears now with your health infrastructure maxed out, they have no other choice but to try herd immunity.
In terms of the rate of cases that is occurring in China, from what we can get from indications from media reports, it may be really too late at the moment to ramp up vaccinations in order to significantly make an impact. We know China has been very successful in order to ramp up vaccinations within the country. We've seen a peak of 22 million vaccinations a day, but unfortunately we think that that's too late now, and by the time that they could reach that level of vaccination, the cases may have already at least had one peak within the country. So in terms of measures that China could implement to help slow the impact, it would really be other measures such as, again, going into lockdown, restricting movement and mixing in order to control that number of cases at the moment. Now, of course, with a significant number of people being infected, there will be individuals getting protection, natural immunity. However, there will be the most vulnerable still getting severe disease and risk of death. So while a large majority of the population could get protection via herd immunity, unfortunately, it would mean there would be a significant number of deaths in the meantime.
Right. Dr. Louise, a quick word on, since you mentioned the vaccines, of course, India has really ramped up its vaccination drive, and we've really achieved it successfully. Our booster shots, would you give any kind of importance and prominence to a booster at this point in time with the new variant?
Well, we have seen with boosters that it can raise protection within a population. Unfortunately, with the vaccines over time, the protection does wane. And therefore, in order to really ensure protection levels within a population remains high, boosters can offer that protection and achieve that.
Right. Dr. Lewis, would you have a word on the new variant that's really driving the surge in China right now, the BF7? It appears there are 4 cases that have been detected in India also. What kind of symptoms do we expect? Any different from the first few variants that came up?
Well, with variants, unfortunately, there's limited data coming out from China. So while it is suspected there may be BF7 circulating, there could also be other Omicron subvariants. Now, within a protected population, within countries that have achieved high levels of vaccination, we have seen Omicron and Omicron subvariants appear more mild, sort of fewer people getting severe disease. But of course, in China, the levels of vaccination, particularly boosters, and the individuals have had significant time since they've had a booster dose. That may be different within that population as well, so more severe disease still occurring with this Omicron subvariant.
Our uninterrupted coverage continues on the other side of this very short break. Akshita brings you a reality check on India's preparedness. We're going to every state to reassure you about how ready India is to navigate whatever's coming up next. As COVID scare is back, India, rest assured, is ready. Akshita is next.
Multiple times, both the IMF and the World Bank have said in several occasions, India is the brightest spot in the global economy and is an island of hope for global growth. So I just want to highlight the fact that real GDP growth and doubling of it is certainly a good indicator for which any government should work. But the way in which we have handled during COVID has kept us away from recession, whereas those who followed certain common principles, which was heard as advice given here also, have gone into recession.
Saif Ali Khan and Amrita Singh's son Ibrahim Ali Khan is all set to debut as an actor after assisting Karan Johar on his next Rocky Aur Rani Ki Prem Kahani. He has reportedly been roped in to play an important role in the Hindi remake of Ridyam. The making rights of the same have been backed by Karan Johar.
അത്രയ്ക്ക് ഇഷ്ടമാണ് എനിക്ക് അവനെ ചേച്ചി അവൻ മുത്താണ്
Meanwhile, visuals of Ibrahim partying, going out with friends, or just making red carpet appearances keep surfacing online. Now, Amir Khan and Reena Datta's son Junaid is also among those who will be fulfilling his dreams of becoming an actor with his debut film Maharaja. It is reported that he will be romancing Bunty or Bubbly 2 fame actor Sharvari Wagh in this Siddharth P. Malhotra's film. So it surely will be an interesting year for these kids. Entertainment Bureau, India Today.
He's the sassy young face of Telangana's ruling party and son of the chief minister. And as a Neta who's become as much known for governance in the state as he is for the fiery feuds he has with his political rivals, here comes the latest chapter. And we should warn you, it involves a chappal. This time a vicious collision between KT Ramarao and the BJP state president. A man leading an aggressive campaign in the southern state ahead of next year's assembly election. KTR's anger is understandable given that his political rivals have persistently insisted on him taking a drug test, a theme that has caught on in the virality of Telangana politics. The BJP, sniffing traction in the attack, is doubling down on the drug test suggestion. While the political opposition in Telangana reserves its heaviest attacks for the Chief Minister KCR himself, the elder Neta's children have been choice targets in recent months and years. Last year, the Congress's popular state chief floated the idea of a white challenge in Telangana to test for drugs, cheekily inviting KTR to participate. This had triggered an eruption that saw even Rahul Gandhi dragged into the fracas. 2023 is going to be a ferocious southern year for Indian politics, with Karnataka in the first half and then Telangana towards the end of the year. Expect things to escalate rapidly till then, with chappals, white powders, slaps, punches, and everything in between.
Powered by only OLX Autos gives the best price for your car. Co-powered by Buy, Sell, Rent on 99acres.com. In association with LIC, हर पल आपके साथ. Mutual funds सही हैं. Shop fashion brands at Ajio. Mask Up India. COVID scare is back again.